The black sand of the plateau shimmered like crushed obsidian as Jonah Creed stood alone beneath a copper-burning sun, its light fixed in an unblinking stare that felt almost judgmental. A semicircle of Vor'Kan warriors surrounded him, their translucent bodies pulsing with orange veins that brightened whenever they shifted their weight. Jonah held his rifle by the worn wooden stock, the barrel angled toward the ground as if he'd simply paused during a hunt rather than walked into the center of a hostile formation. Their stares pressed against him like heat, but nothing in his posture suggested retreat. Acheron, their commander, stepped forward with a rotating click of jointed limbs. The creature's triple-hinged jaw flexed in what passed for amusement. "Human," it said, the voice modulated through plates that bent the air. "Your tool is fragile. You hold it as though it matters." Jonah lifted his eyes, not hurried, not intimidated. "It matters to me," he said, and the quiet sincerity in his tone drew a faint ripple through the warriors. His words did not boast. They did not challenge. They simply existed in the air, calm and immovable. Acheron circled him, studying the simple length of wood and steel. "Its shape is archaic. Your species invents symbols of defiance, not instruments of survival." "It does what I need," Jonah replied, fingers brushing the carved markings along the stock. He did not explain them. He did not need to. Anyone who looked closely would see they were not decorative. They were equations, ratios, carefully notched angular notes made by a steady hand. But the Vor'Kan did not look closely. They never had. A gust of hot wind swept across the plateau, bending around the alien's kinetic halos, twisting around Jonah's boots. The tension in the air felt like a taut wire waiting for a careless breath to snap it. Jonah remained centered, his heartbeat steady, as if he were waiting for something only he expected. "Why come alone?" Acheron asked, "when your kind hides within fractured shelters? You walk into our ranks as if intending conversation." Jonah almost smiled, but the expression stayed behind his eyes. "Didn't come to hide. Came to see if you'd listen before things get worse." Acheron's frills brightened in sharp pulses. "Worse implies you imagine improvement. Your planet kneels. Your defenses collapse. You have no leverage except that relic in your grasp." Jonah inhaled slowly. Maybe leverage isn't the point. The Vor'Kan murmured among themselves, their voices like overlapping metallic chimes. Jonah listened without reacting. He had spent months studying the cadence of their communication, enough to sense emotion even if he couldn't translate the meaning. He heard curiosity. He heard contempt. He heard the faintest flicker of uncertainty. Acheron extended one clawed limb. "Raise the weapon. Demonstrate its function. The Dominion welcomes knowledge of inferior constructs." Jonah lifted the rifle a few inches. Not enough to threaten, just enough to acknowledge the request. "You're sure you want me to?" "Your compliance is irrelevant," Acheron answered. "Your efforts cannot alter the inevitable." "Never said they could," Jonah murmured. He rolled his thumb over the bolt, feeling every groove. The memory of the people who helped him build the rifle flickered, not in detail, not in distraction, but as a steady anchor. They had trusted his insight when he barely trusted himself. He carried that weight now, not as guilt, but as purpose. The plateau grew quieter. Even the wind softened, as though the world waited. Acheron leaned closer. "Your calm is misplaced." "Or earned," Jonah said. The Vor'Kan warriors shifted, kinetic halos sharpening like blades of revolving light. Jonah felt the heat rise against his skin, a reminder of how quickly they could tear a human apart. Yet he made no move to retreat. "You misunderstand," Acheron continued. "The Dominion does not fear you. It analyzes you. If you resist, you will be dismantled. If you cooperate, you will be cataloged. In neither path do you wield significance." Jonah considered that for a quiet moment. Then he raised the rifle to a ready stance, smooth and deliberate. The Vor'Kan braced, expecting panic or aggression. Instead, he simply said, "Significance isn't assigned. It's chosen." For the first time, Acheron hesitated. Only for a breath. Only for a flicker. But Jonah saw it, and he knew the moment had come. He set his feet, leveled the rifle, and finished with, let me show you what you overlooked. In that instant, the plateau felt impossibly wide, as if the horizon itself were leaning closer to witness the exchange. Jonah sensed the shift in their posture, a collective inhale of an empire unused to doubt. The stillness steadied him. Whatever happened next would define far more than survival. He knew it. The Vor'Kan warriors reacted first, tightening their semicircle as Jonah steadied the rifle. Their kinetic halos spun faster, brightening in rapid pulses that cut through the dusty air. Jonah felt the vibration in his ribs, a low tremor that warned him how close he was to being torn apart. But he held his aim, breathing through the tension, letting the stillness settle into his bones. He did not fire. Not yet. He waited for the moment when purpose aligned with clarity. Acheron's frills dimmed, then flared in a sharp rhythm. Hesitation, it declared. A fragile mind calculates defeat and denies it. Jonah adjusted his grip, letting the familiar weight ground him. If I hesitated, you'd know. This is something else. Acheron moved closer, the sand curling around its limbs. Elaborate. Jonah didn't look away. You want to see what this rifle does? I want you to see why I'm here. Those are different things. A faint ripple passed through the warriors, chimes of agitation ringing through the air. Jonah couldn't translate the exact meaning, but he knew a warning tone when he heard one. He kept his stance, letting his heartbeat slow until he counted each thud like a metronome. The silence fractured when Acheron lunged forward with a burst of rotational energy. Jonah fired once. The sound was modest, hardly more than a metallic tap, but the effect was immediate. Acheron halted mid-stride, pivoting its gaze toward the fallen warrior behind it. The downed Vor'Kan twitched, its kinetic halo sputtering before extinguishing altogether. Acheron's jaw flexed in disbelief. Your weapon ignores distortion. That should be impossible. It's inconvenient, Jonah said, but not impossible. The warriors pressed inward, their halos swelling. Jonah lifted the rifle again, though his hands trembled now. Not from fear. He had made peace with fear years ago, but from the pressure of choosing the right moment to reveal a truth that might reshape everything. He steadied himself, reminding his muscles of discipline and intention. Acheron's tone hardened. Explain the function. No, Jonah answered. The refusal rang sharper than the shot. Acheron froze, as if a single syllable violated some instinctive law of dominance. Its frills pulsed with a complex pattern Jonah recognized as incredulity. You resist transparency, Acheron said. Your kind spoke in chaotic signals. Your images, your broadcasts, your music fractured cries without structure. We interpreted them as symptoms of a species approaching collapse. Jonah blinked, the realization sinking deeper than shock. You thought we were falling apart. You were broadcasting disorder, Acheron replied. We believed intervention was merciful. That wasn't a plea, Jonah said quietly. That was living. The wind shifted, thinning the sand between them. Jonah lowered the rifle just enough to meet Acheron's eyes without obstruction. The commander studied him with a new layer of intensity, as though parsing a nuance previously invisible. Acheron's voice softened, not with compassion, but with calculation. If your species is not collapsing, your resistance becomes illogical. Not everything is logic, Jonah murmured. Sometimes it's loss. Sometimes responsibility. Acheron circled him again, slower now, absorbing every detail. Your individual behavior influences the group. That is inefficient. It's human, Jonah said, and it matters. Acheron paused. Your projectile killed one of my soldiers. Yet you do not celebrate. Jonah closed his eyes briefly. Taking a life isn't triumph. Acheron considered the statement, its frills shifting in slow waves. Your emotional responses alter your decision-making. They guide it, Jonah corrected. The warriors stirred at the exchange, restless under a command structure unaccustomed to philosophical detours. Acheron ignored them, focusing entirely on Jonah. The shift in its posture signaled interest rather than dominance. You will surrender the weapon, Acheron said. Its principle must be assimilated. Jonah shook his head. Your people don't understand its purpose. It destroys us. No, Jonah said. It reveals what you never thought to examine. The air tightened again. Dust spiraled around Acheron as its kinetic halo thickened. You underestimate our adaptability. Maybe, Jonah answered. Maybe I'm counting on it. Acheron's eyes narrowed. You intend negotiation. I intend clarity, Jonah said. If you take this rifle, you'll use it on someone else. Someone who never had a chance. That's why I'm here. The warriors murmured again, the sound sharper this time, filled with alarm. Acheron lifted one limb to silence them. Its gaze locked on Jonah with a new weight, as though the human's refusal carried implications beyond the battlefield. You fear consequence, Acheron observed. I fear repeating mistakes, Jonah replied. Acheron tilted its head. Your fear strengthens you. Fear usually does, Jonah said. Acheron stepped closer, the distance shrinking to a breath. Then teach us what fear means. Jonah exhaled, the rifle steady in his hands. For the first time he sensed a path. Uncertain, dangerous, but real. The conversation could shift everything, or collapse everything. Either way, he stepped toward it, and did not look away. The air between Jonah and Acheron felt charged, as if a new gravitational center had formed in the space they occupied. Jonah tightened his stance, the rifle angled toward the ground now, not in surrender, but in a kind of offering. Acheron studied him with an intensity that made the surrounding warriors shift uncertainly, their halos flickering in disjointed pulses. Something unspoken had changed, and both sides sensed it. Acheron's voice emerged lower, steadier. We dissected your transmissions. We interpreted chaos as collapse. Perhaps we misread the signals. Jonah breathed slowly, letting the moment settle. You saw noise. We saw expression. You saw fracture. We saw choice. Acheron tilted its head, the gesture jagged but thoughtful. Your species chooses inefficiency. Not inefficiency, Jonah said. Range. Possibility. One of the warriors on the flank stepped forward, its halo sharpening to a blade-like arc commander. It warned, the human manipulates perception. Its statements destabilize clarity. Acheron did not turn. Clarity is not static, it said. It evolves when confronted with anomaly. Jonah couldn't tell whether that was approval or calculation. Maybe both. He lowered the rifle another inch, exposing it to their scrutiny without relinquishing control. The stock caught the copper light, revealing the etched markings more clearly. Acheron leaned in, pupils dilating. These symbols, Acheron said, not decorative, not ritual, computational. Ratios, Jonah said. Distances, behavior patterns. This rifle isn't only a weapon. It's a reminder. Of what? Jonah inhaled. That I don't fire unless I understand the cost. Acheron's frills fluttered in a slow ripple. Your potential for restraint contradicts your species' aggression. That contradiction, Jonah said, is what makes us dangerous and worth understanding. The words hung in the hot air, neither boast nor threat, but a statement shaped by conviction. Acheron absorbed them with a stillness that felt heavier than hostility. The surrounding warriors shifted anxiously, their uncertainty turning the air brittle. You speak of cost, Acheron said, but you killed one of mine. Jonah swallowed, the memory fresh and sharp. I did, because he forced my hand. But I didn't want to. That matters. Acheron turned slightly, observing the fallen warrior as if reconsidering its own assumptions. We lack your hesitation. We calculate outcome, then execute. No grief, no resentment, no attachment. That's the difference, Jonah said softly. You came here thinking you could predict us. Acheron faced him again. And your rifle symbolizes unpredictability. It symbolizes responsibility, Jonah corrected. Acheron's gaze lingered on the weapon, but its next question focused on Jonah instead. And what responsibility compels you to stand alone? Jonah let out a slow breath. I've seen people freeze when they lose what they love. I've seen them break when they lose what they can't protect. I don't want the world to break because we couldn't communicate. So I came alone. Fewer casualties if things went wrong. Acheron's voice dropped to a near whisper. You experience isolation as preservation. Something like that, Jonas said. The warriors rustled, growing impatient. One step closer. Commander, the human distracts you from protocol. Another joined. We must neutralize him. His emotional projections distort interpretation. Acheron raised one limb. Silence. The command snapped through their ranks like a pulse, freezing them in place. Jonah watched carefully, noting the sudden tension in their halos. Acheron stepped closer to Jonah until the heat of its energy brushed the human skin. You fear repetition, Acheron said quietly. You fear harming another species the way you harmed your own. Jonah stiffened, but didn't retreat. Yeah, sometimes we do damage before we realize we're capable of it. Acheron leaned in further. Then show us restraint, Jonah Creed. Show us what consequence feels like. Jonah closed his eyes for a brief moment, gathering memory and purpose into a single breath. When he opened them, he lifted the rifle and held it out horizontally. Acheron's warriors bristled, halos sharpening, ready to strike. But Jonah didn't raise the barrel. He offered the rifle by the stock, not the grip, a gesture of trust rather than challenge. Acheron stared. You relinquish your advantage. I'm giving you the choice, Jonah said. Not the weapon. Acheron hesitated, the first genuine pause Jonah had ever seen from the creature. It extended a limb slowly, cautiously. When its claw touched the wood, a faint hum passed through its form, as if the rifle's simplicity unsettled it more than any complex device could. It gripped the weapon softly, almost reverently. The warriors reacted with unease, their halos distorting. Commander, one protested, contact with alien design risks contamination. Acheron ignored them. This rifle does not distort under our fields. It resists. It persists. It looked at Jonah with something new in its eyes. It is human. Jonah nodded. And so is the choice that comes with it. Acheron held the rifle in both limbs, weighing it, not in mass, but in implication. We misinterpreted your species. We saw noise instead of nuance. If your technology reflects that nuance, then your survival is neither primitive nor accidental. Jonah waited, silent. Acheron extended the rifle back to him. We will not advance today. The warriors erupted in shocked pulses, their agitation crackling through the air. Acheron spoke over them with finality. The Dominion must reassess the human variable. Jonah accepted the rifle, relief pressing through his ribs in a quiet wave. Then there's hope. Acheron stepped back, the sand shifting beneath its weight. There is uncertainty that is greater. Jonah let out a shaky breath. Uncertainty's where progress starts. Acheron regarded him one last time. Then teach us. And as the warriors retreated across the shimmering plateau, Jonah realized the truth. The rifle had never been the power. The choice had.